The Sultan of Sokoto spoke today saying, "We're not planning to wipe out Christians," while urging Muslims to look for the new moon. Alhaji Saad Abubakar, the Sultan of Sokoto and President General of the Nigerian Supreme Council of Islamic Affairs, said, "Those who kill innocent people while shouting Allahu Akbar will go to hell." Those were his words. This happened in Abuja as the Sultan pushed back against fears of a religious agenda in Nigeria, declaring that Muslims were not planning to wipe out Christians as religious and government leaders called for a reset in how the country understands its conflicts. According to him, much of the violence, often described as religious, is being misunderstood, which deepens suspicion and mistrust. The remarks came at the first triannual meeting of the Nigeria Interreligious Council, NIREC, in Abuja, where the Sultan, who co chairs the council, spoke alongside the president of the Christian Association of Nigeria, Daniel Oko, and the secretary to the federal government of the Federation, George Akume. But, considering what is happening in Nigeria today, I find it hard to believe him. I won't lie. I, for one, I find it just so hard to believe. Just look around you, because what he said is actually a good thing, but even the history of the throne that he occupies says otherwise. Now, look at what these gentlemen have to say.
The Sultan of Sokoto. He was a brigadier general. He was stationed in Pakistan. They're looting billions a year of minerals under his nose. Where's the money going? Why isn't he spoken against it? While he was there as brigadier general, U.S. testimony in Congress shows that we were capturing Taliban and Al-Qaeda units with Nigerian fighters embedded in them.
Wow.
And when he came back in 2006 to take his throne, all the international tactics came at that same time. The suicide bombs, the IEDs, the sophisticated kidnappings that the Taliban had pioneered, and eventually ISIS and Al-Qaeda, all that have come in since then under his watch. And there's no doubt he had, as an intel general in that theater at that time, he had access to all these networks.
Now, that was a gentleman called Mike Arnold, a former mayor of a town called Blanco in Texas in the United States. Mike Arnold has been involved with a lot of humanitarian effort in Nigeria, and he's been one of the people who have been trying to get the world's attention regarding this issue. So, you see part of the reason why I don't believe this? Now, it's not just because he said it. There are a lot of things that point in this direction. Now, let's take a look at what this other gentleman had to say. This man's name is Judd Saul, and he runs an organization called Truth Nigeria, which has repeatedly given warnings about imminent attacks, and most of the time they're actually with pinpoint accuracy. And, well, so far nothing has been done about it. Let's see what Judd Saul has to say on this issue.
You agree with the label that it's possibly the deadliest country for Christians in the world right now, or at least one of them?
Yes. Well, it is by sheer number. I'll just say since 2001, it has been well over 100,000 Christians killed. The last, I can tell you, so this year, 7,000. The 3 years prior was right around 5,000 Christians or more killed per year. I mean, so the number is way more than 50,000. It's well over 100,000. But what people don't talk about is that's the immediate killing. Those are people that were killed right on the spot. They're not talking about the nearly 1 million Christians that have died of malnutrition and disease because their homes and everything they had were completely destroyed.
Well, you heard what both those gentlemen had to say. That was some pretty damning information, which went contrary to what the Sultan is saying. Now, these are not just random people. There have been foreign missionaries on Nigerian soil for quite a long time, um, before most of us were even born. And so they have a network of people who give them information, and they have first-hand accounts about what has been happening in Nigeria. Apart from that, they have churches with branches here in Nigeria, and their members let them know what's happening on ground. So they're well informed as regarding what's happening. Now we have a lot of naysayers, of course, and they come in several groups. First of all, you have the government officials. Now you can understand that in any situation where it's labeled a genocide, government officials never agree to that. It's not unique to Nigeria. The same thing happened in Sudan. The same thing happened in the former Yugoslavia and a number of other places. Government officials, no government wants that any incident under their watch to be labeled as genocide. I get that. So there's the government officials who will always deny it. Then there's the other set of naysayers, people who feel it's an affront, or it's somewhat targeting their religion. But here's the problem with people like that. You see, it's not about religion, it's about terrorists. So the people who are being pointed out here are terrorists, and they don't represent the whole religion. At least I don't think so. So if you're not one of the terrorists, then it really shouldn't bother you. But a lot of people have difficulty separating themselves from their religion when it comes to anything, really. So, and in many cases, they would rather defend their religion than to defend human lives. That's how bad it gets. And like I said, it's not really about religion. Now, people need to just have an open mind about this. I mean, it's black and white. It's as plain as black and white. It's about terrorism, not religion. Even though religion is a vehicle, but then you see, it doesn't mean that it's everyone. It doesn't indict everyone who practices that faith. That's what people need to understand. Now let's take a look at another gentleman. This time, the Benue State Governor, Governor Alia, and let's see what he had to say.
All right. So, and coming back to you just mentioned insurgency and your definition of what it is in real terms. Earlier on, we had a conversation with our reviewers here, and they have also considered that perhaps maybe we need to look a step further, that what's happening in Benue State may be akin to genocide. Do you agree with them?
When a number of local governments have been attacked at different fronts, when we repel some, there is a pushback. They now move to the other corner, and then they invite their bad friends to come in again, join their ranks to continue the fight. And when they come in, they care less about who is on the way. A farmer, a market woman, a child, an old woman, an old man, school children, and then your properties do not matter. They just crush anything that steps into their way. If genocide would fit into this description of mine as a description, as what they mean, then that would be it. And then some other people now talk about ethnic cleansing. Again, I don't know the parameters of this explanation or of this definition. But we have a number of tribes in the state. But the three major ones are Tiv, Idoma, Igede. And all the three at a certain point were under attack. But particularly now, the attack comes by the Tiv axis, where we do more farming in the state. Other local governments are into farming as well. But when you talk about the pivot of food basket, these are the zones. And again, it depends on the kind of crops or grains we're talking about. But these three areas we're talking about are where we have so vast unmanned portions of land where the attacks are coming. And then again in Zone C, in the Doma area, Doma and Igede area, where we're talking about those attacks is particularly in the Doma area. So when they say ethnic cleansing, I'm not sure it's an appropriate prescription of what we suffer. But I can tell you off the bat that once they come in, anything in their way, anything that would try to destabilize them, they first attack and then they go for the most vulnerable. For instance, the attacks that happened at Yelwater was a similar case here. When those attackers came, they came the river Benue. It's not far from this part of the local government, and that was the axis they came from. Now they understand that there is a roadblock in there. We have by the roadside. Yelwater, it's right by the very major road spanning from Akede to Abuja. So it's right by the main road. And it's a big town. So we have the military, the white stroke, who man some posts in there by the roadside, and then the police are also there. When those attackers came, when the terrorists came, when those heartless killers came, they first went to the post where the police and the military usually station. And then, unfortunately for the killers, they were repelled. So they now ran back and moved into the most vulnerable area. And this is why the killings are quite drastic. So I think this is my understanding of what befalls us and how I can fit it into a number of parameters.
So that was the current Benue State governor talking about the attacks that have been happening in his state. He was a little bit diplomatic about the way he went about it. You know, he was treading softly, tiptoeing, if you will. But even if he did it in a subtle manner, he did subtly call it genocide. It might interest you to know that, funnily, he has since then shifted his position on this issue and done a 180-degree U turn. Yeah, well, that's another story. He went as far as mentioning the killings in Yelwata, which were probably the worst killings that happened last year. But guess what? Today, he's singing a different song and dancing to a different tune. Now, this points out the fact that this validates the fact that a lot of funny things are happening in the upper echelons of Nigerian society. And quite frankly, you cannot take the words of a lot of the leaders as key. You can't. You can't take them for their words. You can't believe what they say. Actions, as they say, speak way louder than words. So the Sultan says one thing, but the actions say another thing. What's happening on ground are saying a totally different thing. And even what's happening historically, the institution that he represents says a totally different thing. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Feel free to comment, let me know how you feel, and subscribe if you can. That would be really helpful.